Hello everybody, my name is Jeremy and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about episode 3 and 4 of a series of unfortunate events on Netflix. This is book 2, The Reptile Room. So, first off, I just want to say that I love the representation of Uncle Monty's house. It was absolutely beautiful. I loved all of the work that they did to it, and I felt like the Reptile Room did a really great job at making it feel like it was both outside and inside at the same time, which was something that the book really stressed. Just the overall aesthetic of this whole show is so perfect. Also, I appreciate that the show is not taking itself too seriously, that in the very first segment when the kids are driving with Mr. Poe, he mentions that they're in a new episode of their life, so it's like, it's kind of winking and nudging at itself, and I appreciate that. The timetable was much shorter in these 2 episodes than it is in the book. In the book, it takes place over a little over a week before Stefano shows up, and it's like barely a day that the kids are with Uncle Monty that Stefano shows up. I really loved Uncle Monty. I appreciated the actor that they casted for him. I felt like he looked a lot like the character that's in the book, and I appreciate that he was a person of color. And I appreciate some, if not all of the changes that they created for this episode, and I felt like the pacing was so much faster than in the first 2 episodes, which seemed a little slow, like they were trying to get their footing. That being said, it was very out of order. I chose to watch this episode with the book in my lap, and I was flipping pages as it was going and kind of keeping up with the book as it was relating to the show, and a lot of things were pulled out of order and pushed into new areas, and the way that it was all woven together worked really, really well, and they took out some of the kind of unnecessary bits and added a little more into it, such as when the troupe came in. Originally, that was just Count Olaf's single assistant, and they brought in the whole troupe and added a little more comedy bits into it, and I appreciated that. They also added more into the movie theater segment, which I also really liked. Peru did not seem to be a solid idea going into living with Uncle Monty. In the book, Uncle Monty wanted to go to Peru right off the get-go, and that's how he kind of eased the kids into moving in with him, is that they had something to look forward to, where Peru was something that was a goal after the fact. They tried to make it seem like Uncle Monty was in on everything, that he was smart enough to realize that Count Olaf was Stefano, but then we found out that he did think he was someone from the Herpetological Society, and thankfully the kids never had to hear him say those words, so they kind of got to have a little bit of that memory of their uncle being sort of like a badass preserved in their mind, which I think is good that they can have something to kind of hold on to. The Herpetological Society being spoken about, I appreciate that little adult joke that they had about Count Olaf saying that he didn't know anything about mouth sores. It was just a very funny, like, well-placed herpes joke that my 12-year-old brain really appreciated, and I thought it was hysterical. And I liked the little, like, poke at The Walking Dead during Zombies in the Snow. I feel like that's such, like, an easy thing to kind of poke at, and it was intelligent. It was intelligent humor. What I think is so interesting is that they're bringing in a concept from the Series of Unfortunate Events movie with the whole spyglass thing, and they introduced that and made it a little more of a heavy thing in the movie segment. In the first episode, Klaus discovers a piece of a spyglass, and that was kind of introduced more as a stronger concept in this episode, and it's interesting because, to my recollection, I don't think that was such a big deal in the novels as far as like an overarching theme, but that was such a very big deal in the movie. So I think it's interesting that they're pulling some cues from that and kind of running with some of those concepts, because I think it helps tie everything together and it makes the show fresh rather than just being a straight word for word from the book. And I think that is why I'm not upset that they did take some things and put them in different areas and kind of tell the story a little bit out of order, because they're doing it in a fresh way and they're still sticking true to the book. And we did get some like verbatim lines from the book, like the meanwhile back at the ranch, as clunky as that segment kind of seemed in the book and even in the TV show to some extent. I appreciate so much as like a reference, that they actually like kept that in and made it a big deal to like point it out numerous times. We're also getting some really heavy concepts that were not introduced until very, very, very late into the series. Like the official fire department was mentioned in episode 3, and I forgot completely to mention in my last review that the Sugar Bowl was mentioned, which I don't totally recall them mentioning the Sugar Bowl until very, very late into the series, probably about like book 7 or 8. I'm like rereading all of them and trying to like catch up so that I can be ready for the next season of this show. But they mentioned the Sugar Bowl in the last episode, and in this one they brought in the official fire department, and also the harpoon gun made an appearance, which I think is like crazy that they're pulling in such late concepts from the books and bringing them so early into the show. But it's smart because it's kind of like foreshadowing some of those events that are going to happen later, and it makes them seem a little less like, ooh, where did that come from? Is that entirely necessary? Overall, I really, really liked these 2 segments. I thought they were really great. There was nothing I could complain about. I think I'm getting used to Patrick Warburton as the narrator. I'm still not like thrilled that he's Lemony Snicket, but I'm getting used to it. As my final thought, what really got me is at the very end of book 2, the Herpetological Society is taking all of Uncle Monty's specimens, all of his friends, and taking them away. And in the end of episode 4, the incredibly deadly viper is seen outside of Uncle Monty's house, kind of slithering around in the grass, and doesn't seem to be noticed by the Herpetological Society. And so that made me really happy that he gets to be on the grounds and gets to stay there, and hopefully was not taken back to the Herpetological Society, thus not taking that credit away that Uncle Monty is the one who found it. And just that made me feel things right here. I am so curious what's going to happen with the parents. I am absolutely positive that they are not the Baudelaire's parents. I am 100% positive. And I'm so curious about why Peru was so important, and I'm hoping that they delve into that either later this season or in next season, or in whatever the last season is. I'm hoping that they delve into that a little bit more, because I'm so curious, because the book didn't really seem to make much of a big deal about Peru in book 2, but episode 1, as well as this one, made a big deal about Peru. That could also just be like the foreshadowing that happens at the end of each book, where there's like a photo and something in it talks about what's going to happen in the next one. So I'm curious to see what the significance of Peru is in the context of this series. Let me know what your thoughts were in the comments below about episode 3 and 4, specifically for the Reptile Room, and I will be watching The Wide Window soon, and I will make a review on that as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys then. Bye!